Not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. Oh, hey everyone! Totally surprised me. It's Dominic the Primetime Treasure Hunter. Welcome back to another video, I guess. As you can see, I'm in full Christmas spirit mode. I've got my Buddy the Elf shirt on. Smiling is my favorite, and I'm definitely smiling because I'm looking at some amazing gifts that Mrs. Primetime got me. That's my wife, for those of you who don't know. And, you know, these are amazing items that I got that really could help you out with your reselling business. So, you know, while you're here, I wasn't really prepared for this, but while you're here, I might as well just go over some of these with you. And I don't know how you got into Primetime. It must be Christmas magic that got you like a secret video feed in here. So I'll tell you what, I'll show these to you as long as you don't tell anyone else about this. You just keep this between us. It's our little secret. I'm going to pass this on to you just as a Christmas present from me to you, okay? So I might as well just jump right into it. What I'm referring to here it's this stack of books. They're called OVERSTREET guides. And if you have not heard of the word OVERSTREET before, OVERSTREET is a company that now produces a lot of guides dedicated to collectibles and giving you information not only in terms of value, but also in terms of what to look for. And there's lots of nice glossy pictures inside, and articles and interviews with people who are famous and well known as in the industry to tell you what to look for. And it's real important that you continue to diversify your business going into 2019. So if there's areas that you don't know about, there's likely something that you could find an interest in, that you could develop knowledge about in the OVERSTREET book line. And there's so many different ones. Like here, there's ones about comic books, there's ones about collecting horror, there's ones about comic and animation art, there's ones about tabletop games. Now, who doesn't like tabletop games? Now, you might not like comic books, but you know, most people have played tabletop games and find something interesting in there that they like you can relate to, like Candyland and Battleship, and there's all sorts of Trivia Pursuit. There's lots of money involved in these things. Even if you could just find some of the pieces to some old games, you can make money on them. But Star Wars, I mean, there's so many people who obviously love Star Wars. This is their newest book that came out, and this is the thickest one that I've seen. It is, let's see, how many pages? 416 pages, actually, all dedicated to Star Wars collectibles. This one, for those of you who love music, if Tony Boss is watching, check this out. We've got one dedicated all to poster art, concert poster art. We've got ones on video games. I know there's many of you who specialize in video games, and so we've got one dedicated to that. And movies, for those of you who love movies, we've got ones dedicated to movie posters. And there's many more. This is just a sampling. The ones that I had prior to today was the one on grading comic books, and then I saw an ad for the one that they were coming out with on, this is a recent one too, on horror collectibles, and I picked that one up as well. And then Mrs. Primetime asked me, hey, you know, what kind of things are you looking for Christmas? And I said, you know what, just get me a bunch of OVERSTREET guides. And I purposely kind of stayed blind to it for you know, for anticipation of Christmas, because I wanted to see all the different types that she would pick up for me. But there's many more besides these. I know that just from flipping through the books. They advertise other guides out there. So I'm going to show you a few of them and just kind of go through and give you an example of what's inside. So, you know, maybe you will decide to go pick one up. I highly suggest at least browsing through them and online and seeing some that, you know, pick up. They're pretty inexpensive. And again, they can really help you learn and broaden out your knowledge base for your business. Now, just as a brief background, the term or the name OVERSTREET is named after Robert Overstreet, who started making comic book price guides back in 1970. Now, the first price guide was actually very thin. It was like a little booklet. And they actually make replicas of them now for people who want to go back and get them, because there's not many of the originals around. And I'll actually find them once in a while, the replicas, and sell them on eBay. I just sold one recently, for example, that I got in a collection. But as time went on and the comic book industry morphed and grew, these guys, this is the 25th anniversary edition. You could see, I mean, they're pretty thick and they get bigger and bigger, and the font just gets smaller and smaller. So You know, now if you go get the current version, I mean, it's pretty huge. This one dates back to 1996, so like a more modern version is much bigger than that. So it just kept getting bigger and bigger over the years. And so Overstreet then started to branch out and make some other guides, and this is one of the ones that I really love. So now, even if you're not into comic books and you're thinking you may want to learn more about it, and that's one of the things I dedicated this as a resolution I want to talk more about going into 2019 is my #1 area, which is comic books. A lot of you have asked me to do that, so this is a little segue into that. I know if Aaron's watching, he wants me to do a video on grading comic books, and I'll go over that, and I'll do that sometime in 2019. But this is a great resource to have. What it does is Overstreet actually has their own guidelines that they've created on how to grade comic books from a scale of 0.1 all the way up to 10, which is known as Gem Mint. And they, have like a little basic table here that just shows you what the name of the grades are, and they're organized there by number. But then what it does is it has text in there where it will go over for you, and it will say, okay, well, this is what a 10.0 means, and this is the criteria, and this is what, a 9.0 or 9.6 or 9.8, and it'll go over that. Now, that's rich with text, so if you want something that has more pictures associated with it that could guide you, the book is really helpful with that. And so like I'll show you an example. Like it would say, let me get out here, let's say like a 9.6. So it will have the basically a checklist that you would go over right here in text format, but then we'll have like little bullet points there of things to look for that would make it a 9.6. And then what's really cool is that when you open it up, they give you all sorts of examples per grade. And so there's 9.6, 9.4, 9.2, 9.0, 9.8, 10, 8. I mean, it goes in 0.2 increments, and they have multiple examples. So it's not just 2 pages on the 9.6. I mean, there's multiple pages, like as you can see here as I turn it. And they give you like cool terms that you could use, in your listing sometimes. So, for example, it will say things like, this down here, you would call it a color fleck. So that's a good term to use that you might want to use in your, in your ad if you see something like that. Or, a term I like to use once in a while on my ads is if there's a blunted corner. That's a very common issue that you'll see in comic books. Sometimes even when they come out fresh from the distributor and they're on the comic book rack, there's blunted corners. So common things, but then also some more uncommon terms are in here. But this basically guide goes all the way from the 10.0 all the way back to the low zeros and stuff, like poor condition books and stuff like that, and gives you all sorts of examples of that sort of thing. So highly recommended if you want more information about comic book grading. This book is always by my side. If I ever have a question in terms of any kind of judgment I need to make between, should I call it this grade or call it that grade, I always refer back to this. That's why you'll see it's well used, and I've got some page creases in here because I'm always going through it. Highly recommended. Directly from me. Now, when I was flipping through that book and reading through it, I saw that they were coming out with a horror collecting guide, and I said, wow, I got to get that, because one of the things that I could pass on to you for sure that resells at a really high rate is anything, almost anything related to horror. It could be a horror movie poster, it could be horror-related action movies. From watching my sourcing videos, I go out and get lots of horror DVDs, and I sell them as lots. Horror magazines, all sorts of things. I mean, there's just a lot of it out there, and even comic books, horror comic books. And this guide here, EC was a famous comic book line, and it will show you like some guidelines about certain books, and it will tell you different prices and stuff for them, and it just gets you familiar through those visual aids. I mean, there's lots of things in here. For example, and you've seen me wear it before if you've been with me for a while, I bust out my Count Chocula shirt. I've got, a Frankenberry pillow and all sorts of stuff. Who doesn't like the Monster cereals? I love the Monster cereals, Boo Berry, Frankenberry, Count Chocula. There was one named Yummy Mummy, and I don't know how many of you remember Fruit Brute, But there's a strong collectability to these General Mills cereal monsters, and you know, it'll go through examples of different toys and different items, you know, like a watch, and it'll tell you what the value is for them, and you know, it's just really, really cool information that's in here. So lots of interviews and stuff like that with different people in the horror industry. Video games. So this one is really cool. It is generally organized by theme in terms of titles. So like it'll go over Pac-Man, for example, and go over a whole bunch of Pac-Man collectibles. I mean, I remember in the day playing Pac-Man when it first came out, and you know, you'd pay a quarter to go up to the machine and play it, and there'd be a long line of people behind you. And then Ms. Pac-Man came out, and I remember when Super Mario first came out on the NES and playing that, and there's a whole collectabilities market related to Mario. Like, for example, I have a whole bunch of Mario plush dolls right around the corner here that I need to get listed and get them up, and you know, so even things like related to video games will sell. It doesn't have to literally be the video game. Final Fantasy, you know, there's a whole section on that in here. So there's just a ton of stuff, and you know, it's just really, really helpful. Sometimes they go through things based on the actual video game company, like Capcom. So Capcom made a lot of great games like Street Fighter and that sort of stuff. So there's just a lot of information packed into these thin books. There's the Overstreet Guide to concert posters, which I showed you before, and there's lots of cool things in here. So, for example, Tony Boss would love this. Goes over Grateful Dead and stuff, and there's lots of great articles in there about that, and it'll go over different prices, like, you know, this poster here, which sold for like $2,000, and sure, you're not going to come across these things every day, but some of them, but other ones you will, and other things will just give you kind of ideas of what to look for, even if you don't find the same exact one. Like, for example, this is an article here about the top 10 sales of classic posters, and just a cool article about it. But even when you look through it and you get the visual, a lot of this is about developing an eye. Like, so when you go out to an estate sale, garage sale, you have to develop an eye for what it is that people want. And so maybe you don't find these 4 posters, right? But you find something that looks similar to it, has a similar visual theme, and that tells you, wow, there might be you know, something in here that's something about this that's collectible. Maybe people want it, and it will, you know, kind of spur you on to do a little bit of research about it, and then you pick it up and you make a great sale. So there's lots of great articles in here. This one looks good. All these other ones I'm showing you now are ones, this one here, the video game one, and these other ones. These are all ones I haven't looked through much yet because Mrs. Primetime just got them. In fact, you snuck in here on this secret video line somehow. I don't know how you did it, and while I was about to look through these. This is the newest one that just came out according to Mrs. Primetime. This is the Star Wars one, and this is a pretty thick one. This one is 414 pages, so there's a lot of stuff in here. If you love Star Wars, you're going to love this. Talks about the Star Wars books, and I have a ton of Star Wars books, like right behind me, right up here, about a whole bunch of Star Wars books that I have to list. In fact, I actually have this one listed right now, The Empire Strikes Back, along with a nice vintage Star Wars folder. So I have them combined together in like a little lot. You probably very familiar with the action figures, and there's just tons of pages here on the Star Wars action figures, and talks about value and just gives you information about the history of the items. And I love history, and I love just learning. And if you love learning, I mean, these books are just going to be so much fun for you. There's ones on the trading cards. I have a bunch of these Star Wars trading cards, so you could look through that and learn about that. And again, it's all about just learning, broadening your horizon, just getting interest into different areas, and just opening your eyes. And it's like, wow, these are things that people like, and you might not believe people want to spend large amounts of money on some of these things. Tabletop games. I was talking to you about this earlier. You would not believe, especially if you are brand new into reselling, how much money people will sometimes pay just to get replacement toy parts. So even if you can't find an old game in complete condition, you could just sell off the parts of it, like little pieces and things like that, and people will purchase it. So sometimes people will pay high money for some games that aren't even complete. A great example, a great bolo for you. Look up the value for the game Shoot the Moon. I found that several times at estate sales, and I've sold it for anywhere between, like, $80, $90, that sort of thing. It's a great, even when it's not complete. It's mostly complete, but there's just some amazing games out there, like Battleship. I was just looking through these recently because Mrs. Primetime and my kids, Primetime Junior, love playing Battleship, and so I was looking back, and I was going to get the electronic Battleship game. It turns out there's a good collectability to the old electronic Battleship games, because the current ones now aren't made as well, and so they're not as reliable, and so people want those. Like, I was thinking about going back and buying one of those retro games, because I know how reliable and how good that game was when I was a kid, and that's what people are doing. They're going back and they're buying old games because the current ones are just not as good. So that's why people are willing to fork over that type of money, because you want to bring forward a lot of times to your children games you used to play with when you were younger. It'll go over Star Wars games, and let's see, we've got Warhammer, for those of you who are into like fantasy role-playing games as well. It has that, so it's not just a traditional board game. It's anything that's tabletop, so there's just a lot of this type of stuff. If you don't know about Magic the Gathering, this would be a great way to kind of get a little introduction to it, into some of the cards and what the game is all about. So a few other things before I wrap this up. Comic and animation art. You might wonder, well, how am I going to find that? Well, I actually just, several months ago bought a big collection out in the state where there was tons of comic and animation art. And so I am doing super well, making a killing on selling that stuff. And this type of guide is really, really important. Tell you a lot of interesting things. Like if you want to learn about the art of Captain America, it has articles about that. It has historical articles, like the origin of art that's created in comic cons or comic conventions. I'm just giving you a little sampling of what's in here. I mean, there's a whole big thing on, let's see here. We've got Conan art, and there's just a lot of different things. Lots of cool interviews and stuff like that. One other thing I'll go over with you is the movie poster. So we went over the other posters before, the concert posters, but the movie posters do really well. I just sold a Creature from the Black Lagoon poster from 1972, and it was pretty beat up. It was, it had significant wear to it. I purchased it for $2 and sold it for $57.50. That was just a recent sale that I made. And so, they have a lot of stuff in here about posters that you can learn about, posters from the United States. Also, it has a section that goes over international movie posters as well. Talks about the different sizes that you could identify, there's a whole section here based on different themes. So we've got one here on superhero themed movie posters, and just lots of articles again about the history. That's one of the things I love about reselling, is just there's just so much out there to learn. And if you love to learn, reselling is just a perfect area for you, because you can make money on your learning. And so, you could probably hear the passion in my voice about it, because I just love this type of stuff, and I just can't wait to dive into all these books and just learn a lot more stuff. The learning just never ends. You never know everything in this type of business, and that's a good thing. It's great to just always keep things fresh and learn. And remember, this is just a sampling of the books that they have out there. I mean, there are a lot of other OVERSTREET price guides out there, and it even says right here, like, here's examples of other ones. So like some ones that I don't have, it has a guide to cosplay, which is where people dress up into certain costumes based on their favorite characters. There's other ones in here too. So what you could do is, if you're interested in these books, go down to my description section right below this video. Just click to open up, and you will see links to these exact books, and you can purchase them right through there, right through the link. These are all things that I am going to get great use of, and I'm telling it to you based on my personal experience with this brand. Specifically, these two books, I know they're awesome, and so I know these other ones are going to be awesome as well. So I do not think you'll be disappointed. They're not expensive. They are affiliate links, so anything that you purchase through there, I get a small commission from. Nothing I'm going to get rich off of, but it does help me out and does help support this channel. This is the first video I've made after we have bumped into 2,000 subscribers, so thanks so much to all of you again. And I'm sorry if you watched that last video. There's a little part where I am talking and looking back at some older videos, and there's a competition between my voice and the voice on the video. I was actually not aware I had to mute the other, the YouTube channel. I had my computer volume all the way down to the bottom, and I couldn't hear it, but didn't realize you were going to hear it when it played that. So I am cursed with making these 1,000 mark thank you subscriber videos. The last time I made one, when I hit 1,000, I had a sore throat and I was sick, and I was trying to make the video anyway. So hopefully when we hit 3,000 there won't be any snags. I just decided to keep it up because I was delirious when I made it at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the next day was, you know, we're right into the Christmas holidays here, and so I didn't, you know, I had things I had to go do yesterday morning, and most of the video is fine, so just skip through that part if it just gets too annoying. So sorry about that. Big announcement, I am doing a final live show this Friday, so December 28th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There will be giveaways for the first time. The first video I ever made, it's a 1-year anniversary show. The first video I ever made was December 28th last year, so I am celebrating 1 year on this channel with you. Come in for fun, frolic, question and answers. We're going to talk about goal setting for next year. We're going to reminisce, look back about the highs and the lows of 2018. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope you all could be there. Let me know in the comments section if you're going to get there or not. I'd really, really love to see you there. It's going to be a fun time. And I'm going to also make one major announcement of something that's going to happen in 2019 in terms of a live show. So I am going to announce that. And so it's just going to be a great time. Come on by, join my Facebook group, the Facebook Reselling Resource Center. The link to that is down below in the description section, as well as the link to my Instagram account at prime_time_treasure. Hope to see you there. Smash that like button and make sure you are subscribed as we go to 3,000, 4,000, and hopefully 5,000 by the end of 2019. Let's get a jump start on it. See you Friday night.